Hello, my name's Ben,
And my name's Josh.
and welcome back to FPL Graduates, and welcome back to another video on FPL 22-23. Wow, FPL is just around the corner, and we're going to go through 5 players who we think you should potentially avoid.
So, coming up first, in no particular order, is Mikel Antonio. Obviously, the start of last season, he was the must-own player to have. He came firing out of the blocks in the first game of the season against Leicester. If you quite remember rightly, him and Ben Rama were really good. Me and Ben owned them both, got loads of points, but they quickly dried up and he became quite a menace to own in our teams. And we saw towards the back end of the season, he just didn't really have those FPL returns like someone else did called Jarrett Bowen.
Yeah, indeed, and we could see Bowen go up front. Like Josh said, the majority of Antonio's points came in those first 5 game weeks of the season, and the goals just simply dried up. And with the additions that West Ham could potentially get in, we know they're looking at a winger or something like that. We could end up seeing Antonio getting a few more rests with Bowen going up top instead.
Yeah, Armando Broja as well linked to West Ham, and you'd expect, 34 starts for Antonio is quite surprising, to be fair. We didn't expect that before last season started, so I definitely think we'll see a lot more rotation with Antonio going into next season.
Okay, so the second player that we've got in our team is Jose Sarr. Now, guys, I think it could be definitely potentially one to avoid. Yes, the opening fixtures look very tasty, but he could have and should have last season conceded a lot more goals than he did.
Yeah, it's down to him himself. He's a great goalkeeper, but can he maintain that level? As you can see there, his expected goals conceded, nearly 57. He only conceded 40. That's a difference of 17 goals, which is absolutely crazy. You can see a lot of clean sheets. Obviously, he kept 11 clean sheets, but obviously only 1 goal to wipe them out. So I feel like if you did own Sarr last season, you did get a bit lucky. And I personally think that luck might run out this season, especially with Wolves. They're not looking great. They don't look like they're improving either. What's your thoughts on Wolves, Ben?
Yeah, I think as well with Sarr, you've got to sort of take notice that he could be a keeper that is more premium than other options that are available. And in terms of value for money, we have tended to see the 4.5 million keepers provide the best value for us. And Jose Sarr is not going to be at that price. He's going to be a little bit more expensive. And as well, Wolves have had injuries. They've lost players and haven't quite replaced them defensively yet. So at the moment, it's an avoid. But if Wolves do pick up sort of their transfer targets and pick up a little bit of business, we could be saying something different. But for now, we're going to have to say Jose Sarr is an avoid.
So moving on to our third player out of our top 5, it is going to be Sergio Romero. Probably quite an obvious pick, to be fair, after the arrival of Ivan Perisic. We expect him to be playing left wing back next season, but there could be some rotation there. Reguilon, I think when he first joined Spurs, we expected big things from him after Sevilla. He gets forward a lot. Was expecting that sort of Chilwell, Robertson vibe from him. He's sort of failed to impress, and obviously the stats last season show that, Ben.
Yeah, they do indeed. It doesn't help that he sort of missed large portions of the season as well. We know he's a player that picks up injuries quite regularly. So if Conte is going to use him, he's going to use him sparingly. And you've got to remember as well, they've got a very capable Sessegnon as well on that side of the pitch. So we could see Reguilon's minutes be really, really limited in the upcoming season.
Yeah, obviously there's been rumours as well of him leaving the club too, obviously with the arrival of Perisic. So we'll wait and see on that, but definitely an avoid from us.
Next up, we have got Mitrovic from Fulham. Now, again, this is potentially an obvious one, especially for the start of the season. Yes, we know last season he picked up loads of goals in the Championship, but we also got to bear in mind Fulham's fixture run at the start of the season is really, really tough. So for us, it's an avoid at least for the first 6 or 7 game weeks until we can sort of see Fulham have a run where Mitrovic might be involved in the goals.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen Mitrovic do this sort of thing before in the Championship. Maybe not to the level that he did it last year, but he scored a bag load of goals in the Championship and never was able to cut the mustard in the Premier League. Personally, I think there will be stints this season where you should be owning Mitrovic, but definitely not from game week 1. Liverpool at home, Wolves away, Brentford at home, Arsenal away, Brighton at home. They're tough fixtures for an attacker. I'd say Brentford is probably the best fixture there, and the rest are very tough fixtures for an attacker. When do you think you'll be owning Mitrovic throughout this season, Ben?
It all depends on the form. For me, Mitrovic is a form-based player, and he maintained that form over the whole season, really, last year, with the sheer number of goals that he scored. But as soon as we see that fixture run turn for Fulham, I'll be looking to get him in, especially as a striker that's a little bit cheaper than the premium options available.
And fifth, but by no means least, it's a controversial one, even for the graduates. It's going to be Gabriel Jesus. I'm not going to lie, I've made this slide, so I've put him in there. I think it's going to be an interesting, probably a wait and see for me. I think, like Mitrovic, there will be points this season where maybe I will own Gabriel Jesus, but I just don't think it will be from game week 1. I think potentially minutes could be a problem with him and Nketiah. There's a reason why Nketiah stayed. I think maybe Jesus could be moved out wide, as we've seen at City as well. So there's a lot of just things that we are unsure about with Gabriel Jesus. What is your thoughts, Ben?
It's very, very contentious from Josh. It has to be said. And I can understand some of the reasonings. Maybe last season he didn't quite get enough minutes to convince us that he'll be able to sort of consistently start every single game. We know what Arteta's like sometimes, though. He can rotate a lot if Arsenal aren't in a good run of form. And then once Arsenal hit that run of form, he keeps the team the same. So it could be a case of if they're struggling a bit and Jesus is starting, and then they hit a really good run of form, whoever's up top in that good run of form is going to stay. And that's why we saw Nketiah in the team towards the back end of the season. So it's not crazy to avoid Gabriel Jesus, but I think as well, it's a really big risk, and you've got to be calculated with when you bring him in and when you don't, because he will be that striker who could on his day score a hat-trick, as we saw last season against, was it Watford maybe, that he absolutely bagged. So it's a big risk to not own him from start of season with Arsenal's fixtures, but I can see the reasonings.
Another thing as well that I failed to mention at the start was probably that his price point, he's going to probably be around 8 to 9, maybe even 9.5 million. That sort of price point in your team is going to be quite difficult to field, in my opinion. If you're going to have a premium striker like Haaland, a premium midfielder like Salah, you're going to have to make way for someone, maybe in defence or even in midfield like a Luis Diaz. So I think for the players around his price, I think they're going to be better options. And it's all about flexibility. If Jesus pops off against Palace and then against Leicester, you need to have the flexibility to move to him and make sure you can do that. So bear that in mind. And I think having Jesus in your team from the start, and if he doesn't pop off, it does sort of create a hole, whereas there's no one, I don't think, that's going to be priced around that price who could probably get the same output as we think that he might be able to get.
Okay. So that's our main 5 players who we've gone for in terms of players to potentially avoid. Now, at this point in the game isn't even out yet. So obviously, we don't know about pricing and that sort of thing. So it's worth bearing in mind that the price point's not set yet. So you've got to sort of take it with a pinch of salt. But we do believe that there is a case for avoiding some of these players going into sort of game week 1. And potentially at points throughout the season. There's going to be a lot of players in the next season, isn't there, that are going to be in spells of really good form. And it's just all about jumping on the bandwagon, isn't it, Josh?
Yeah, I think we've already seen in this transfer window that next season there's going to be a lot of assets for a lot of different teams that we're all going to want to own at some stage. It's just a case of picking the right ones, like you said there. Like we're seeing, like obviously maybe Rafinha going to Chelsea, Sterling going to Chelsea. These type of assets maybe weren't as lucrative, especially Sterling, for example. Like you wouldn't really pick him over De Bruyne. But now when if he starts at Chelsea week in, week out, he becomes a much better asset to own, and again adds another asset that we probably already had, but makes him so much better. So hopping on and off these assets this season is going to be the key to getting those big finishes.
I think as well, it's worth bearing in mind that teams are going to be allowed to make 5 substitutions next season, and we saw the impact that it had last time we had that, and I think it's going to affect the amount of points and some of the ceilings of players. We're going to see players, potentially those that were on our list, getting subbed off a little bit earlier than we expected. So it's going to be one of them seasons, I think, where we may get frustrated with some of the substitutions, but you just got to keep going and try and pick the ones that you think are going to score as many points as possible before they get subbed off.
So that wraps up the top 5 players to avoid this season in FPL. Let us know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Anyone that we've missed that you think you need to be avoiding this season in FPL.
Yeah, and as usual, if you like the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you do want to follow us on any other socials, they're all linked down below. And as usual, I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
Later.